Question number 2, this is a foreclosure issue. Do I have to pay my property taxes if I'm in foreclosure? This came from Percy in Port Charlotte. It depends, Percy. Do you want to try to keep the house? In other words, if you don't care about the house, you're going to move out and you're going to let it go back in foreclosure, then of course not. You don't pay the property taxes. For the bank will have to pay them, or the new buyer will pay them, subject to getting a clear title. In other words, if I'm coming in and buying a property that's in foreclosure, one of the things I'm definitely going to look at is, has somebody paid the property taxes? Can I reduce the purchase price and put some of that money over here to pay the property taxes? This way I don't have any problems with Charlotte County or the state of Florida or whoever else has got a lien on this property. So I want to make sure as the buyer I'm getting a clear title. And number 2, if I can reduce the purchase price for that and pay it, what's the difference? Why would you pay the property taxes if you're going to walk away from the house? That doesn't make any sense to me. So I wouldn't want you doing that. On the flip side, let's say you're trying to keep it. It just went into foreclosure because of whatever situation. The bank stopped telling you, we'll pick on Bank of America this week. Bank of America said, we're not going to work with you unless you're behind 90 days. Then you go behind 90 days, they say, now you're behind 90 days, there's really nothing we can do for you, or we have no programs available for you, or whatever other kind of mumbo jumbo they're going to give you. And now you're saying, well, you know what, the house is underwater, 100 grand, why should I even keep it? But should I pay my property taxes? Well, if you're contemplating walking away from the house, my advice always is don't pay the property taxes. You got to remember, you can skip the property taxes for at least 3 years before it goes to a tax deed. Now, people will argue with me on that. They can apply for a tax deed, blah, 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 blah. It's not about tax deeds. If you don't pay it for 2 years, you're good. You can live in the house without paying the property taxes for 2 years. It's not a good thing to do. It's not good for the county that needs the revenue. But at the same point in time, it comes down to your personal pocketbook. You want to know whether or not you should pay the property taxes. If you want to keep the house, rule of thumb is pay the property taxes. That makes it easier to keep the house because you don't have to come up with all that money later. If you wanted a simple rule of thumb, put the money for the property taxes in a savings account. Let it sit until you figure out if you're going to save the house. If part of saving the house is, hey, you got to pay the property taxes, there it is. It's done. That condition is met, and now the bank will maybe work with you. I've seen that happen before, where banks said, yeah, we'll do a modification, but you got to pay the property taxes. We're not going to pay them and add that into the balance of the account. So we pay the property taxes. You know, I'm a big believer in if you're not going to pay it, put it somewhere else so that when the time comes to modify the mortgage, you have that money set aside in a safe place where you can just pay it down. Whether that be in a bankruptcy case, like for a mortgage modification, whether that be in a outside of foreclosure case, or whether it be something like this, where you have a property tax issue. Put it in a savings account and let it sit. Don't touch it. When the time comes to pay it, then you pay it. If you want to keep it. If that day never comes, then you take that money out of the bank and it's yours, and you move on with your life.